Welcome to another episode of the Well Life Podcast, where we connect with individuals across what we have determined to be the 8 dimensions of wellness.
Yeah, today we have on Kristin O'Connor, who's a private chef, an author, and the founder of SuperDirt Foods.
Kristin, thank you so much for being here, spending some time with us. I'm happy we were able to make, I know we've been trying to connect for a little while, so I'm happy we were able to make it work today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. This is really fun.
So, to start off, just a little intro, kind of who you are, what your background is, and kind of what you're currently working on.
I have been a private chef for the past 12 plus years. I started off my chef career working for actors and athletes, helping them achieve specific body goals for film or for obviously athletic performance.
Wow.
And through that, really spent a lot of years traveling all the time, to the point that for about 8 of those 12 years, I had a storage unit, not an apartment, because it just didn't make sense. And so I would, my role was to really, and some of those jobs, I had to craft these perfectly balanced meals. You guys know this from training, but in order to achieve specific body goals, you have to have your proportions right also in terms of carbohydrate, protein, fat, all of those kind of in play together and thoughtful. And so I was working 7 days a week and often up to 14 hours a day and traveling. And so although I was around food all the time, the food that I had for myself was either random scraps or, snacks that I would have to find kind of on an airplane or abroad or in an airport. And those, as we know, are not very desirable.
No.
So because of that, I always knew that I wanted to kind of take what I feel so passionate about, which is every ingredient should serve a purpose that we put into our bodies. Whether we're making our food or we're buying our food, it should be not a terribly crazy thing to ask for, that food is actually food and we're choosing things that are good for us. And I wanted to be able to provide that to everybody instead of just one client at a time. But it was on one of these trips that I had where I was literally sitting there in a middle of the night flight in Europe, watching my client eat this perfectly crafted meal. And I had this, the basket that they bring around of snacks on an airplane. It's Fritos and whatever else, I don't know. And I was like, this is not cool. We have to have something that's shelf stable, great ingredients, and has veggies and superfoods so that you haven't had a salad today, but you can feel really good about this choice and be yeah, I've given myself actual nutrition. So that's when I started creating Ballers, which is my company SuperDirt Foods' first product line. And they come in 6 different flavors, and I'm now full-time working on that. So it's been really exciting.
Yeah, love that.
Cool.
First, congratulations, right? As a business
so
owner, to be able to shift from kind of what you were doing previously to being able to kind of work within your passion full-time, that's amazing. So congrats on that.
Thanks. Yeah.
As we kind of get into, SuperDirt, first, tell us a little bit about kind of your journey into becoming even a private chef. And I'd love to hear the context more about how you were also cooking to specific kind of body goals or performance goals, because that's way more in line kind of with the fitness industry as well, as opposed to kind of just cooking whatever some celebrity or athlete kind of wants you to make.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I went to graduate school for art therapy. So I did not study culinary arts at all. And was working as an art therapist and had to change and adapt my diet for health reasons. It wasn't something extreme, but a lot of things were popping up in my early 20s that probably shouldn't, in your early 20s when you should be at the peak of health and wellness. And so I was cooking for myself. And at the time, I was around 23 when I changed my diet. I was gluten, soy, and dairy free for a year, and then I'm still gluten and soy free. And at the time, there was nothing out there. There was no baked goods or regular food that you can get on the go or anything to even make that was. So I had to cook from scratch if I wanted anything that I felt was actually delicious.
Yeah.
And I realized that I've had a passion for cooking since I could stand. There's pictures of me in my mom's kitchen at 2 years old with an apron on. It just was what I was drawn to. And so I had this idea to pitch a cooking show to Food Network, and made my own demo tape, like had no connections whatsoever, but like made my own demo tape, sent it to a Food Network production company. And like 6 months after, they called me and were like, "We love your tape, let's sign and like make a pilot." So we did.
Wow.
It was too healthy ultimately at the time for Food Network, because this is like, I was 26 at the time, so a very long time ago. And then I was brought on as an associate producer, and then my mom got really sick, and I went to different naturopaths, medical doctors, like was not improving at all. And she, as like a last ditch effort, ended up going to Dr. Diadamo, who wrote the blood type diet. She happened to see like an article in the newspaper by him, and she was like, they were going to take out her colon. She had ulcerative colitis. It was so severe. Within 3 months of working with him, she was able to like get up, go outside, like start living a normal life again. And I would come home to take her to appointments with my dad, but I was helping out. So I got to know him, and I showed him that I had written my own cookbook, and he was like, "Why don't you pitch a concept for me? Like, I would love to put new cookbooks out there." So I ended up writing 4 cookbooks for him.
Yeah.
And we were at a book launch party in Brooklyn, and a personal trainer who was there, who had put his clients on the blood type diet, was like, "We should collaborate and work together." And eventually he had a client who was preparing for a role in a major film in New York City. And he was like, he told the guy, he was like, "She's the only one that could help you like get in shape for this film and do it like in a really healthy way. So you should hire her." And I was like, I've never been a private chef before, so this is just a bold-faced lie. And like, I didn't start it. And he was like, no, I've tasted your food. Like, you're the one. Like, you could do it. And so that was my first gig. I cooked for this person for 2 weeks, and then ended up getting hired for the film, and then hired as his private chef in LA. And
Wow.
It really just kicked off my career.
Oh, really cool.
Cool.
Okay.
There wasn't any passion to really cook in that way, or with that like modality of cooking? It was more so just personal interest, right, and personal health goals turned to like you're putting out great quality and it's being seen, and now you just happen to fall into this role overall. Like, what was that transition look like? What does that look like for you in like a business sense and like in an internal sense, right, for yourself, like making that transition as a person?
Yeah, I didn't have my eyes set on being a private chef at all. I actually someone suggested to me, I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know why, like, it just didn't occur to me. And then this opportunity just presented itself. And, I really saw it as temporary. I saw it as like, I'm going to try this and I'm going to do my best. And whatever happens, happens. And, I really, really hustled. Like, I put my entire being into that job. I was cooking on a cook truck in Manhattan. I've never cooked on a truck before.
Was that on
never
set?
in a commercial kitchen before. What's that?
Was that on set? Is that what that was? Yeah.
It was on
Wow.
Wolf of Wall Street. It was my first film.
Oh, yeah.
And I, the amount of hilarious, takeaways from that job was just incredible. And I think for me, it wasn't like, oh, this is like my new career. I'm going to just, now this is my identity and my new career. It was, oh, this is an opportunity for me to do what I really, really genuinely feel passionate about, which is helping people be healthy through really tasty food.
Yeah.
And it was such an exciting, thrilling opportunity to do that, because I didn't chase after it. It kind of evolved out of a passion that I already had, if that makes sense.
No, definitely.
Yeah. No, that's cool. What were some of the recipes that you'd make that were really good tasting but also healthy? Because I feel like people get this diet mindset, and we preach all the time, you want to be able to eat the foods that you want also on occasion, but coming from someone that's physically preparing every single ingredient, right? What's the approach that someone can take, and what did you take kind of to help these people eat healthy but in an enjoyable way, like you just said, enjoyable food? So what were some kind of cool recipes?
Yeah, it's a good question. Every single person is different in what they find tasty and what they really crave. Like some people crave carbs, like me included.
All of us.
Some people are just like protein addicts, and everyone is different across the board. So for me, with my particular career where I'm really focusing in on one person at a time, it's important for me to get to know them really well and to figure out what, if you're going to be on a diet or you're trying to achieve a body goal, like it's really important to not ignore the fact that you like certain things.
Yeah.
And then how I approach it is, well, how can I make the healthiest version of that thing? So I don't want to deprive anybody of who has a sweet tooth or who wants to eat proteins or whatever it is. It's more about taking those things and finding the most like the cleanest way to approach that meal. And then as I'm crafting and creating a meal, the way that I think about it is like every single step that you're taking has to have flavor in each of those steps.
Yeah.
So, and it's intentional. So it's like if you're creating a braise, right, for like, I don't know, turkey or something, the turkey itself should be flavorful as it goes into the pot to be seared, right? And then the broth then is flavorful. And how am I adding flavors? Like herbs are so incredible because they have such a robust and satisfying kind of taste to them, and they lend so much flavor to a dish, but they're really good for you, And so there's a lot of simple ways to create a lot of flavor and to sort of layer it as you're creating a dish, that ultimately results in something that's like really satisfying because it tastes good, and it's satisfying because it's addressing the need of that individual person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because to TJ's point, people think that eating what is deemed to be healthy is such a chore, and that you're just eating things that you pulled out of the ground, and right, you get that stigma of it's just going to taste like dirt. But no, all of these things should taste good, and you can enjoy this experience the entire time.
Yeah, and our dietitian calls them like dog food diets, right? He made that phrase as of like beef and rice, chicken and rice, right? Bland and just like very, very dry cut crap, you know what I'm saying? As opposed to like, let's actually eat what we want to eat to a certain extent. Yeah. So how did that, now segue us back kind of throughout, how did that play a role in your development for SuperDirt? Looking at the health aspect, the taste aspect, and how you could have someone, I guess, or something, I guess, that's somewhat shelf sustainable, and a product that would sell.
Yeah, it was interesting because when I learned a lot about what it takes to create something that's shelf stable and what it takes to create something that you can really produce in a way that a lot of people can have it, and then not reduce that food to something that's ultimately unhealthy for us. It's a really challenging thing to do, and there's a reason for it. Like mass production of certain things kind of drowns it out at the end of the day. So when I looked at creating SuperDirt Ballers, which is our first product line, I really wanted to maintain the integrity of how I approach any meal. Snack, doesn't matter. Breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner, doesn't matter. Everything is approached in that same way of making sure that every single ingredient serves a purpose and that I know why I'm using it, right? And so I wanted vegetables, I wanted superfoods, and I also wanted a variety of different ingredients. I think it was really interesting if you look at the path of snacks in particular, that we went from having snacks that had a laundry list of like really unhealthy ingredients, and a reaction to that was, okay, let's like put out foods that have 5 ingredients or less, to really get the general public to have that mindset of like clean is best. Let's know what we're putting into our bodies, and that serves a really good purpose. But I'm trying to challenge us to take a step further and say, okay, but we can also have a combination of a lot of different really good ingredients. And what that does is ends up, my whole philosophy is equal emphasis on human and environmental health. So what that does is your gut microbiome, as I'm sure you guys know, each gut bacteria needs and feeds on different ingredients, right? So broccoli isn't feeding the same gut bacteria as potatoes. So when you're diversifying the intake of nutrients and like where those nutrients are coming from, you're ultimately cultivating a richer gut bacteria, which is incredibly good for your health. And at the same time, as somebody who's creating a product that I'm trying to make a lot of and sell a lot of, I'm also creating a demand for ingredients that aren't typically used. So, you know, I do have ingredients in there like almonds and dates that are used more often, but there's also a percentage of quinoa, flaxseed. We have broccoli sprouts in some of ours. We have kale and spinach and moringa and matcha. And so the environmental demand is distributed, right? And so that's what we need for soil health also, is to reduce monoculture. And when you have soil, when you have one crop growing in soil over and over and over again, it depletes the nutrient value in that soil. That's why biodynamic farming is so important, because the crop rotation creates a richness in the soil that gives us our nutrients. So that's why we're called SuperDirt. Without healthy soil, we don't have healthy food. I mean, SuperDirt's hilarious, I think, as a name for a food company. But it's also because it draws on that fact that, like, we need SuperDirt, guys. Like, that's what we need to have healthy food.
No, that's an amazing background. I love hearing kind of that story behind the naming convention, because that just there's so much in a company that comes from what your actual meaning is, right? So yes, you're creating a hopefully a tasty product that's healthy for you, but having such much more of a bigger impact is hopefully going to lend your business that much more success because of the story and what you're actually doing for the country, right, for the world. There is a big issue with, right, we mass produce kind of corn, and that's kind of like the biggest product that we put out, and to your point there, that with this over mass production, like that's where we lend ourselves into these issues with farming and kind of the soil issues there. Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself having an issue with finding the ingredients you need for your products because of that?
I was going to say that. How do you go about sourcing that? Because that's really interesting to come from that mindset. Because it's like, in a perfect world, you could do anything you want, but how do you match that to the world that it basically is today, you know?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It was definitely a challenge. Our first run, and I have a lot of support from amazing friends and family who helped me. Like, beyond the word help doesn't even do it justice. I'm just like, really lucky to have that. But I am kind of like, I am a one-person operation when it comes down to it. And so I was just researching. My brother has helped me a lot, and he's great at that too. So we just both dug our heels in and researched to find suppliers because we're organic also. Every single ingredient is organic in our product. And that was really important to us as like a baseline standard. And then my really good friend, who's believed in me and been by my side this whole time, Toni Garn, she has a foundation called the Toni Garn Foundation, and she helps promote women's education in Africa. So she actually brought me to Ghana, probably 5 years ago, just before COVID. But and we were she was working with this school who was on a moringa farm, and the moringa farm supported the school. And so I want to do as much direct trade sourcing as I possibly can, because then you're able to also give back directly to farmers in terms of how much money they get for their product, right? If you have, the more middlemen you have, the less they get. And it was really interesting because the farm was incredible. And we went also to the processing center where the moringa leaves are dried and then ground into a powder and would be shipped to us. We didn't end up being able to use that because they were like, on the USDA certification for organic is really complicated and a long process. And so they were just on the edge of being able to be USDA certified. I ended up finding an incredible moringa company Kuli Kuli, who I wholeheartedly support. The work they do is incredible. But just going through that process and meeting with the people who are actually growing the food and seeing how it's then dried and ground down, and really like being a part of that from the ground up, literally, is so inspiring. And it's really difficult to do at this stage of a company. We were able to do it with blueberries, which was really exciting. And our plan going forward is to do that as often as we can. But it is complicated by the standards, which we should have standards, right? Like we have to have food standards. But it's complicated by the fact that those are really, really challenging standards to meet. And so it's a long process. But yeah, we ended up finding great vendors for all of our products, and we have to just keep on top of it and make sure that there's availability when we need it. And, it's part of the deal. Yeah, so after the trip to Ghana and realizing that we couldn't use that source yet because they weren't yet USDA certified, I found an incredible company called Kuli Kuli, who is doing really great work, and they have a USDA certified organic moringa that's wonderful that we use in our product. We were able to direct trade source our blueberry, and it's this really cool farm very close to where our product is produced. And they grow organic blueberries, and then they press them into juice. And then the remainder of like the skin and fiber and seeds is dried into a powder that's then used in our product. So it's a use everything farm, and it's organic and it's local. So we're really thrilled about that, and we can't wait to be able to do that for a lot of our other ingredients.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Amazing.
Where are you guys based out of, real quick? Where's your kind of like HQ, I guess?
Connecticut.
Okay.
But
cool.
yeah.
What I think
and
is
our
really
product is made in the U.S.
Amazing. What I think is really interesting about that is as we get more health and wellness conscious companies, that hopefully there's kind of a demand push on the other side for the farming and for kind of for the industry to have to go towards this style of farming, and we get more reward for the farmers that are doing more locally sourced and better farming styles.
Yeah.
No,
that would be ideal. That would be awesome.
It's cool. It's cool because you think of like, right? They always say primally people used to use the animal in totality of every part of the animal, right? When they would harvest or hunt and use everything that they could for everything. But now in today's world, like you said, single source kind of, or single kind of growth farms where it's only corn, the soil is not nutrient dense, it's just churned up and repeated. And a lot of products are basically, right, developed that way as well with the main things, but there's no care for using everything that a plant, a vegetable, or an animal kind of has to offer, because people want ribeyes all the time, or they want, right, this type of veggie or something, and it just kind of is hyper harvested, I guess. So that's really cool. That's something I really haven't even thought about from a product standpoint. That's awesome.
Do you see some change happening kind of in the health snack or food industry, right? Even with kind of this pressure that was even put on kind of recently of Kellogg, there's been a lot of kind of news and noise there. Any thoughts on the industry kind of as a whole?
I think the Kellogg thing is really enlightening, and it's really exciting that people are talking about it to the degree that they are and are so riled up about it, because I think the takeaway from something like that is that it is possible. Like, it is possible to have cleaner food. We've gone really far down a path of like stripping our food and then putting additives into it, and then like creating an artificial taste that is then, and then those things happen to be like really addictive properties, and then you get kids eating them, and then you have childhood obesity. It's just like there's such a huge issue around food that it's like exciting for me to see people get riled up about Kellogg's.
Yeah.
And to be able to see the difference of like this is what's provided for other countries, and this is what's acceptable in our country. And why? Like, why is there a difference? Like, why are we offering two different things where one is clearly less nutritious than the other? Or not even just like less nutritious, but like it has things in it that aren't good. They're like actively not good for us.
Yeah,
so like,
and not necessary.
why are we making this choice for ourselves, like for each other?
Yeah.
So I find that really encouraging in the industry. And yeah, I mean, look, like healthy food has been on the rise for a while. I hope it just continues in that direction. I hope to be one player in a huge pond of, really great real foods that like we all find a different way to put out there into the world.
Oh, that's great. So what do you see as the kind of the future for Ballers and SuperDirt? Do you see yourself adding more SKUs? You're going to go into things that maybe are more than snacks. Kind of what's your thought there?
Yeah, we are really just launching. We did a soft launch in April, just like sending this out to friends and family on social media. But now, I'm going to be on this show October 30th called Buy It Now on Amazon Prime, which is super exciting, where I get to pitch SuperDirt to a live studio audience of 100 people.
Wow.
And they literally vote. I did a 90-second pitch. So it's like I had to have it memorized. And without cue cards, no monitor, nothing. And the studio audience, immediately after I finished the 90-second pitch, voted, would I buy it or would I not? And it was absolutely terrifying to wait to see like how this audience was lit up green or red. And then, should you get a certain amount, you get to speak to the judges, and then the result is whether or not you get put on the Buy It Now platform on Amazon. So because of this show, I'm really excited about SuperDirt and just getting the word out there so people know that it exists, and starting to learn about like why it's so important, like why we thought it was so important to put out into the world. And from that, I think I'll learn a lot. I'll learn what SKUs, which flavors people are really drawn to. So far, it's been really interesting because it's pretty across the board. I have 6 different flavors, and I made 6 because I couldn't decide what I wanted most. Because I was like, at different points in my day or life, traveling here or there, whatever, I want different varieties of my own product.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see that. And then we've talked about different things like putting out a fall special SKU for limited, like a limited period of time, or a winter one, holiday season. And then outside of that, I have 2 different lines that are separate from Ballers that I've been developing, that I'm really excited about. So yeah, I see a lot of.
You're not going to tell us about those yet, though.
I won't go into too much detail, but they follow the same principle, which is like conscious convenience. We want to provide super healthy food at like the ultimate convenience. Mm-hmm. So I want when people are traveling, or everyone has their reason for being really busy in life, whether it's kids or work or travel or adventure, like whatever it is, we're all busy. And so how do we maintain the integrity of what we eat and how we're feeding ourselves in a way that actually tastes good and that we enjoy doing?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to meet those needs through SuperDirt.
I just hope that it ends up being like an Oreo that you can eat for a meal.
There's broccoli.
Yeah, you can eat a full sleeve.
I mean, arguably that's what we did.
Exactly.
Figgy chocolate is, and mocha maca are 2 that, I mean, all of them have a sweet taste.
Those were good.
Yes.
It's interesting because like lemon greens, some people are like, oh, I don't know if I'll like it because it says greens in it. It has broccoli sprouts and kale and moringa and matcha. But it actually tastes delicious. So when people try it, they're the most surprised by lemon greens because they're like, oh my God, this tastes incredible. This is like, it's my 7-year-old niece's favorite flavor.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. It's cool because I actually, now that you say that, I had trouble remembering all the flavors, but the greens one I actually surprisingly think that I like the best. Even though to some people it can be a little bit of an acquired taste, right? Some people are like, well, it's not candy, so it's like, yeah, you're right, it's not going to be candy. It's not supposed to be like, if you're going to eat an Oreo, you're going to eat an Oreo. It's totally different, but at the same point, it's like, what do you care about more, right, in that sense? But I enjoyed that one. The greens one was great.
Yeah.
One question I had specifically for me was like, how do you see, or how do you kind of go about marketing, and what are you thinking for like growth with the company and appeal? Are there some difficulties you've seen with, because it's always right, health industry that's so saturated with so many of the same bland pre-workouts, products, random snacks that are trying to come out, and so many of these small companies trying to compete. Yours is extremely unique. But is there anything you see that that you've come across that's difficult, things that are like really working in your industry to your like product kind of, I guess, specifically?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really challenging to put a new product out into the world and to get it and to have people see it and know that it exists. That's the biggest challenge of pretty much any startup company. And so that's why, the Buy It Now experience is really critical for us, and we're very excited about, because it's an opportunity for me to speak to SuperDirt and to answer questions about it in a way, like on a platform that I wouldn't have been able to before. So that's really great for us. And I do have support of some of my previous clients who have been really, like one in particular has been really amazing and helpful. She's just incredible. And then we're working on social media and digital marketing. But it's tough, it's tough. But I think the thing is that when you believe in what you're doing, you find a path forward. And that's what I've seen in this entire process. There could have been a million reasons for me to abandon ship.
Yeah.
A million, including time and money, because I was working 7 days a week and paid a normal salary. To really put a company out there, you do kind of have to get to a point where you stop and just do it full time.
Yeah.
And it's really tough. But what I've seen is that I think the make or break difference is like sticking with it and being really authentic to yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, there's no compromising on the integrity of what I'm putting out there. So as long as I can maintain those three pillars, I'll be moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. I love the line you used earlier too of just conscious convenience. I think that is in the health industry. That's kind of where we try to strive people to get towards, from snacking or just eating in general. Just kind of being able to think that way and have a product that you can rely on, kind of in that matter is super important. So, Kristin, we appreciate you. One thing we ask everyone, kind of as they finish up speaking with us, is just a little, what is wellness to you? Kind of how do you define it? What does it mean in your life? So we'd love to hear kind of your standpoint, especially someone that's kind of been in the industry and from a different side than we are currently.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, for me, wellness is a very lifestyle-oriented thing. It's a state of mind. I don't look at each meal that I eat as like a chore. Oh, I have to eat something healthy. It's a reframing in your mind of what it means to be healthy and like where your motivation comes from. And everyone's is slightly different, but I want to live as full a life as I can, with as much energy and joy as I possibly can. And I know that in order to do that, I have to concentrate on health and wellness and prioritizing really great food and mental health and physical health and all of those things together as one, and just like really see it as my life instead of like something like a choice I'm making every single day, all day long, if that makes sense.
100%.
Yep.
Yes, we appreciate it. Before we go, can you let everyone know just where to find you, where to find SuperDirt?
Yeah, of course. So our website is superdirtfoods.com, and our Instagram handle is also @superdirtfoods.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you on Amazon.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I haven't seen it yet, so we'll all watch it together.
Definitely. Thank you again,
Thanks
Kristin.
for having me,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Yeah.
Best
have a
of
good
luck.
one. you.